Humans are weird. Take one for the team, written by Betty Adams. I really don't know the differences in human and Shatar biology were that different, Second Father said, as he bent his triangular head down to inspect Third Sister's frill. The internal skeleton of theirs does provide an impressive strength, First Grandfather reminded him. Also, I've heard, all that calcium tied up in their bodies for an entire life, so expensive. Will Eighth Granddaughter need more zinc to cover her main veins, do you think? No, I think the lines are thick enough, Second Father said, making sure that he set his antennae in a firm but respectful curl. First Grandfather was far from too interfering, but Second Father had found that solid boundaries set early prevented grandfathers and even some officious uncles from nibbling away at his duties. First Grandfather clicked in acceptance and turned his attention back to the sphere that had inspired his first inquiry. The exterior had been harvested from one of the massive, dangerous herbivores that the humans insisted were critical to their agriculture. These fragments of mammalian outer membrane had been shaped and stitched together around some kind of bark core wound round with fibers of some sap-like substance. First Father had spent more than one delightful day dissecting one of them with the more technically leaning sisters and cousins. They call it a softball, Second Father said to the First Grandfather in an aside as he applied the final stroke of protective oil to the Third Sister's frill. Curious, First Grandfather said, probing the sphere with his finger. It's not all that soft. The second mother of Human Hive to our north explained that it is a comparative name, he said. It is not nearly as hard as the standard baseball. That follows, First Grandfather agreed. Still, it seems rather unsafe. I will not be letting my daughters play with us humans, Second Father informed him. I had my own third sister arrange a mimic game up under the scrub trees on the dunes. We can't risk prolonged solar exposure anyway, and the human first sister assured me that the softballs cannot reach us so high up. Now trail along, daughters. There was a series of happy clicks as the vines around him rustled, and the mobile offspring of the hive scampered out in pairs. First and second sisters had carefully applied their own solar protection and sported neat applications of zinc and oils. They had less success with fourth sister and first brother, and both Second Father and First Grandfather had to mind the curl of their own antennae to hide their amusement. The splattering layers of zinc would be more than protective enough to prevent their fragile frills from being scored by the solar radiation, and there was at least an entire bottle of oil to seal it in. That certainly looks efficient, First Grandfather said, and couldn't quite hide the amused clicks in his voice. Fortunately, the little ones were focused on escaping the garden as fast as they could. Mind the sand, Second Father warned them as they darted down the trail towards the beach. The older sisters curled their antennae in agreement but didn't noticeably alter their speed or trajectory. The light of the sun shone down warmly on them, and already Second Father's antennae were tingling with the sounds of the humans who had already gathered on the shore. They can really absorb that much solar radiation without hurting their membranes? First Grandfather asked. So they say, Second Father confirmed, as they drew up to the wild clearing under the twisted red branches of the trees that served as their meeting place. A solid thwack sounded from the beach where the humans were striking the balls with the hardened wooden clubs, and despite being well aware that they were in a safe zone, Second Father couldn't quite resist the twitch of the yellow sphere arced up in the direction before falling to the sand with a soft thump. And the sand does not abrade their little feet, First Grandfather demanded, looking with clear distress in his pseudo-frill at the immature humans who were scampering around with no protective coating on their little feet. I must trust that their own fathers know what is best for them, Second Father said, but the tight curl of his antennae confessed his own distress at the thought of the tiny human toes scraping over the fragments of shell again and again. First sister and second sister had decided that the softball was much too heavy to toss between them, so they were rolling it around on the ground. Second Father was laying out the nectar he had brought when a particularly loud thwack of the club striking the ball drew his attention to the humans just as the ball drove forward directly towards the smallest human. Before he could react, the sphere slammed into the small human's chest with a resounding thunk. There was one horrible moment where everything stood still, and then the child slowly collapsed backwards onto the sand. "Second cousin," first sister cried out, her frill flaring with panic as she darted down the sand dune towards the humans. "First grandfather," second father snapped out. "Stay with the little ones." He raced after first sister and second sister, who had followed her to their friend. By the time he caught up with them, they all bent over the fallen second cousin, who was writhing on the sand, clutching her hands to her chest. Somehow, the ball had not caved in her abdomen. "She can't breathe," first sister called out, clutching his hand. "Her father is here now," second father said soothingly, pulling first sister back to give the human father more room. Strangely, the human male did not look overly concerned. He dropped down to his knees beside his child and began to murmur to the small human. "Hey, baby girl," the human said. "Can you get up? Just breathe. Just breathe." "How do you expect her to breathe with her lungs crushed?" second father burst out before he could stop himself. First sister, who knew more than a little human, gave a panicked trill, and the human father glanced up at him with an astonished look. "Her lungs are fine," the human said with a laugh. "She just got wind knocked out of her." Just then, the human child arched back and drew in a great gasp of air. Her breathing quickly went from ragged to regular, and she scrambled to her knees. "That's it, baby girl," the human father said, patting the child on the back. "Walk it off now." The human father glanced over at the clearly distressed first sister and second sister. "Hey, first sister," he called out. "You escort Betty around the June gardens so that we can keep playing down here and she'll be safe." "Yes, I would like that," first sister said with a quick glance at second father for approval. "If it'll help her." "I'm fine," the little second cousin wheezed out. "I just need to walk it off." The three young ones staggered off together, and second father tilted his head up at the towering form of the human. The human father smiled down at him and rested a massive hand on his shoulder in what was supposed to be a comforting gesture. "She's fine, second father," the human said. "Really, just had the wind knocked out of her." Just then, another of the human's children yelped something about the tide approaching, and the humans ran off to see what was the matter. Second father stared after him, and then up the trail at the clearly recovering human child. The sound of the sphere impacting her chest played in his mind, and he slowly shook his head and turned to reassure first grandfather, though he wasn't sure exactly what he was going to tell him. Story number 2. The Hunter and the Beast, written by ProvisionalRebel. The door was open. It set the Primarch on edge. His eyes darted along the frame, passed into the gentle blue glow of the screens inside. He saw the movement, heard the ragged breath of the beast inside. He knew it was wounded, and that was perhaps the worst of it all. His men had failed to kill it in ambush, and now they must wander into its lair. Still, the metallic tang of blood filled the air, its drops heavy on the floor, and smeared imprints on the walls. This beast was at the end, and no beast should be forced to suffer, even it. He ducked inside, slowly, the fur on his back standing on end, his boot clanging forward as he neared the beast. It was small and muscular, but his grey mane betrayed the weakness of age. He held one hand to his stomach, having apparently given up on treating the wound. His other hand held a small rounded glass filled with some deep brown liquid which smelled of iodine and alcohol. The beast took a deep breath, speaking in Hunter's own language, "hoping to have this done when you got here." His lips curled, baring its teeth in a weak grin. "Shame to waste good something." He didn't use a word the Primarch recognized. He raised his other hand, wet with blood, and pointed to a chair opposite him before his arm collapsed back to his stomach. The Primarch stared at his beast for a long moment. Was he a younger hunter? Would he not have already killed the beast? Perhaps, but his mane was too grey. He sat down in the opposite chair, his body and armaments making it groan under the weight. "You gave us the hunt of a lifetime, beast." The beast snorted, a red tinge on the spit at the edge of its lips. "Beast, is it?" He took a short sip from his glass, giving a grimace. "Hey, beast, you're not like the prey that we've found before." He nodded to himself a moment. "We thought you were for many years. You ended many bloodlines on that falsehood." The beast's eyes closed for a moment, but his chest still heaved. I know. Its eyes fluttered open, moisture pooling at the edge of his eyes. For a long time, it was just rage. I just wanted blood. Blood for blood, the Primarch nodded his head. This is something I know. There was a long moment of silence, only pierced by the slow, ragged breath of the wounded beast. What now? Another moment, and then the beast's grip on the glass slipped away. With a crash, it shattered to the floor, the room filled with its pungent odor. Now, you go to where all hunters are bound, Primarch of beasts. The breathing had stopped. The Primarch rose, slowed by the ache of his bones. His eyes looked to the monitor, which had lit the room with its soft glow, and saw the beast, young and strong. His eyes drifted across the others, a mate and children. He lifted the beast into his arms reverently. His hunt was at an end. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.